Let me get to the right screen and share that with you all. Thank you all for your patience this morning. I am glad that you are here with us. And as we get started, the goal of today is to show you ways to kind of move through your drive so that you can get to what you want to use, what you want to edit, what you want to share faster than just scrolling through however your drive currently looks. So if you will drop in the chat, I am curious to know where, how you currently organize your drive, what your navigation for drive currently looks like for you, how you normally get through it. And I appreciate the folders and the chaos and just searching. It seems like we're all in the right place. I will be sharing the slide deck with you, the bit.lys at the bottom, but I will also be like live demoing it for you. So, and I'll come back every so often and look to see if there are any questions in the chat. So if you have anything, let me know. Would it help? Oh, I guess I don't have that option. Never mind. Color coding is brilliant. So I'm Kate Appleby. I'm a teacher librarian over at Grand Terrace High School in Grand Terrace. So I'm neighbors to some of you. I'm on Twitter. My personal handle is there. Our library is both on Twitter and Instagram, so that handle is there as well. I am a certified level 1 and level 2 Google educator. I love Google. I've been using it in my classroom way before my district was a Google district, way before Google really existed for the school aspect of things. I thought it was brilliant, and I love technology. Like, I always love to learn. I always love to try things out. It's just kind of who I am. So I'm excited to share with you today. So organization of Google Drive, sometimes it might look really nice, like files and folders, and sometimes it looks like this desk on the right, where it's just a hot mess. You got to search. Files are wherever they are. Sometimes they're in shared with me. Sometimes you know it exists and you don't even know where it is, and that search bar is handy for that. My organization is sometimes organized and sometimes not. It's an ongoing process. But I promise you, there are ways to navigate it no matter how your organization is. So right now, if it is chaos in your Google Drive, you can still use the tips today to find things faster. So if you're living in Southern California, you know that sometimes the freeway is not the fastest way to get to where you're going. And additionally, it might be a combination of the freeway, it might be a combination of surface streets, it might be a combination of something else that gets you where you need to go faster. Google Drive is exactly like that. There are different routes to getting to the files and folders you need, and it all depends on your purpose. So we're going to talk about 5 of them today. We're going to talk about AI predicted files. We're going to talk about workspaces. We're going to talk about starred, we're going to talk about shortcuts, and we're going to talk about creative naming. And I've included why you want to use each of these here. AI predicted files, depending on how you use Google Drive, this can be faster than searching. Workspaces are fantastic for when you have a project, but the files exist in different locations. Starred is brilliant for quick and temporary access. Shortcuts are fantastic for shared with me files and folders. And then creative naming just gives you greater control over your organization of your drive. So let's start with the AI predicted files. Your AI predicted files live in 2 places. Jessica, yes, they do. Jessica, for AI predicted files, let me clarify that one. Your AI predicted files are in 2 areas. They are in my drive, and it will say, what will it now say? It says suggested, not quick access anymore. And they're also in priority at the top. You have to turn this on, and we're going to talk about way you turn them on. And they'll show up for priority. regardless, they will not show up in my drive unless you have it turned on, but I promise I'll show you that. AI predicted files, when I started, I was like, why would I want, like, these files don't make sense. And if you're an infrequent user of Google Drive, the AI predicted files may not make sense. You may look at them and be like, why is the AI suggesting I want this file right now? There's a trick to it. Your AI predicted files are 3 factors that determine it: who you share them frequently with, when relevant meetings are, and what files are accessed at specific times of the day. So if you access a specific file at around 2:30 every day, you log into your drive at about 2 o'clock, you're going to see that file in the predicted file ribbons. If you've got a meeting coming up and it's in your Google Calendar and it's with a specific person, you might see that a file that you share with that specific person is now in your AI predicted file ribbons. So it's all about learning how the AI reads what files you might want. It's not based on, unlike recent, it's not based on like when you opened them. So knowing that can help kind of read that AI ribbon. So where are the locations? My drive and priority. And it's super, super important that you know kind of how many are there. So really quickly, can someone see that you are now seeing my drive and not the presentation? I just want to double check that.
Yes, we can see your drive.
Thank you. So I'm in priority right now, and you will see that this is my AI predicted ribbon here, and I can keep scrolling. There are 10 of these that are available, and you'll see I edited it yesterday. I opened it today. It will tell you kind of why it's there and why it thinks you need it. This one was just shared with me today, and I have not opened it at all. But the AI is going, hey, we think this is kind of important for you, which is fantastic. And so you'll see that there's 10 here versus my drive, where there's just 3. So I have started using priority for a variety of reasons. One of them, though, is I like having 10 AI predicted files available. I don't like being limited to the 3. And so the AI predicted files are kind of nice for that. Let's talk about priority, because my favorite route to get to things in Drive right now is Workspaces. And it only works if you have priority turned on. So there's a couple of, there's a big caveat here. If you are using a free Google account, you do not have access to priority. Sorry. If you have a G Suite for Education account, or a professional account, a business account, you should have access to priority if your admin have turned it on. I believe that most admins have. So how do you add priority? It's there. So it should be here on the left-hand sidebar for you. But when I open up my Google Drive, it automatically opens to priority. And that's because I've made some choices. I went into the settings, and then I scrolled down and I clicked on to make priority my default homepage. So instead of opening up to my drive, it now opens up to priority. And if you want the suggested AI files in my drive, you have to turn those on as well. And so that's that first box of make relevant files handy when you need them in quick access. They will always be available in priority. They will not be available in my drive unless you've turned them on. So this is how you set priority as your homepage. And you don't have to set priority as your homepage right now, but if you really, really love Workspaces the way I do, I hope you'll come back here and choose to make priority your homepage. So let's talk about Workspaces. They live in priority, which is fantastic. They are right below the AI ribbon, predicted files ribbon. And you'll see I have several workspaces already going. I have a total of 5 right now. And I also, if I scroll all the way down, I have at least 1 hidden workspace. There's a difference between hidden and active. My active ones will show my files. My hidden ones will just show the title of my workspace. And if you're thinking, okay, why a workspace? Like, really, what's the difference here? Think of a workspace as when you are doing a home improvement project or when you're crafting. All my tools, my hammer exists in my tool chest in my garage. But if I'm working on a project, I might need my hammer out of my tool chest. I might also need some grommets that I have in my crafting box in another room in the house. I might also need fabric that I just bought, so it's hanging in a shopping bag in my dining room. And so I've got the stuff that I need to bring together to work on, but it all lives somewhere else when I'm not using it. Workspace is that same concept. You have a project you're working on, and your files, and can only be files, can't be folders. Your files exist in other home locations. So your files might exist in a folder that you own and don't share. Your files that you need for this project might exist in a shared folder. They might have been shared with you. Workspaces lets you gather all of that stuff together so that you have it in one place and you don't have to create a folder for it. So let's actually go through and create a workspace. So you'll click create. You may have suggested workspaces if you've never used workspaces before. If you do, you can choose those, but you don't have to. So for my new workspace, I'm just going to call this one a test. And once I create it, it will say, do you want to add files to this? And yes, I do. But notice you can only add 25 files. So it will open up this toolbar at the side and you can search for your files. You can search by recent, my drives, shared with me, starred, whatever you would like. So I may just go to my drive and just click on the ones you want. And when I've got these 4 selected, I'm going to say insert. And now these are my 4 files. I can click done. I now have this workspace created. It will, if I click on it, it shows me my files again. I can add more files. If I click on the snowman that pops up next to each of them, I can remove the file from my workspace. So let's say I'm still working on this project, but I no longer need this file. I'm going to remove it from my workspace, and then it will show here that it's been removed. It is still wherever its home location is. So Workspace is neat because it's really just a quick link to that file. It's not moving the file from its folder or wherever you have it stored. It's not making you the owner of it if it's not a file you don't already own. This is a way just to put all the files you need in one place so that you can easily get to them. Now, when I'm done with my workspace, I can hide it, which will move it down below, or I can just remove the entire workspace. So when I remove the entire workspace, the workspace is deleted, but the files remain in their location. So workspaces follow a lot of the same they follow their same kind of conventions of Google Drive, so you don't have to struggle to learn a new process for it. But I love Workspaces. It is fantastic for kind of keeping everything you need in one place. So for example, I'm on a committee and I tend to keep our important stuff in my workspace here. I do have a folder for all this. it exists in my drive. It's just chilling right here. And I can open it up and I've got subfolders and they all exist there. But it's just easier if I just put them here. There are a couple of caveats for using Workspace though. One, you can only have 8 active workspaces. You can either hide or remove the ones you're not currently using. You can only add 25 files. So this is really project-based. This is not a new type of folder. You can only add files, not folders. And the adding to it is a little difficult. So to add, you would have to, don't open your file, because if you open your file, you won't be able to add it to a workspace. You can add from the workspace in priority, or let's say you've got a couple of files, you're looking at one and you're like, oh, I need to create a workspace with this. If you right click on it, you can add it to a workspace and you can add it to one of your existing ones. These only show the active, or you can create a brand new workspace with it. So if you're looking at your drive and you know you need to add this file to a workspace, you can just right click on it and take care of adding it to the workspace from this pop-up box. I love workspaces. I hope you do too. They definitely have a purpose. So the next up is Starred. Starred is fantastic for temporary access. So I didn't use Starred a lot. I would just kind of go to what was recent or hope it ended up in my AI predicted files and I could find it. But this last year, I really found that I needed to get to some stuff pretty quickly. Mainly I needed to get to my agendas for my classes that I was teaching, but when I was helping our Black Student Union out for creating social media posts, I wanted to be able to drop that easily in their folders. So it was easy to just move some stuff over to Starred. Unlike a workspace, Starred allows you to put folders in it, which is why it's a nice place. If you know you've got folders you need to access regularly, you might want to star them, because these are actually buried. They're nested in another folder for me. So to get to them from my drive, I have to go through their primary folder. But if I star them, I can get to them easily over here. Starred is really, really simple to use. And I need to clean mine out because some of these I no longer need access to. You're in your drive. If you find a folder you want, you can right click it and choose Add to Starred. If you do that and you decide later on, I don't want this in here, and maybe you can remember what folder it was, you can just remove from Starred by right clicking. Or if you open a file, right next to the title of it will be a star. And you can just click that star and it moves it to your starred page in your drive. So now that file is there. And if I'm looking at this and I've got it open and I'm going, why did I star that? Or I no longer need that starred, it's just simple to unclick it. I absolutely adore Starred for the quick access. I think it's overlooked. I don't feel like enough people use it because you're kind of like, well, I can just go to recent. Or if I've got priority open, maybe it's in my AI predicted files, or I'll just move it to a workspace, or I'll just search for it in Drive. But if you know that you're going to access a folder all the time, or you know that it's a file and it's only a single file that you're going to go to all the time, like that's the only file you need, it's not part of a bigger project, Starred is a wonderful way to navigate your drive. So all the navigation requires some setting up, and I recommend using things in conjunction with each other. You may find that one works better for you than others do, and that is, that's what you have to do. You just have to make it work for you. So how else can we navigate Drive? I wasn't sure about shortcuts. And I've really come to love shortcuts. And if you've not seen shortcuts yet, if you've got something shortcutted, it will end up looking like this little icon here. We'll have a cutout of a folder or the file, and it will have a little arrow. Or if you right click on it, it will say add shortcut to Drive. And I kept seeing this add shortcut to Drive, and I was like, I'm not so sure if I want to add a shortcut to Drive. I don't know what this does. I don't know why I would want to use it. And then I started using it. And I have to be honest, shortcuts are a little scary when it comes to removing them. So in Workspaces, if you remove a file, it stays in its original location. In Starred, if you unstar a file or a folder, it still lives in its original location. Shortcuts are not quite the same. But I think the beauty of shortcuts are when you have things shared with you. I very rarely open my shared with me page because right now it's looking okay. But if you've got stuff coming to you from Google Classroom, you know that this shared with me can get overwhelming when you are looking for something. And you literally have everything in this shared with me drive, the shared with me page. I never clean mine up. So it has everything that's ever been shared with me. And so if there's something in here where I'm like, oh, this is really, really important, and I need to remember this, you have the classic option. You can add it to your drive, right? You can just be like, I'm going to move this to my drive. And for this file, I don't have that option. So I should find a file I can actually add to my drive. So I can move this to my drive. Cool. But maybe I don't want to, because when you start moving things to your drive, you can end up crowding out your drive. Maybe for this one, I want to make a copy of it. But what if I don't want this forever? And what if, and with making a copy, you know that if someone makes a change to the original one and you have a copy, you're not going to see the changes to it. So maybe making a copy is not what I want to do here either. Adding a shortcut to Drive is the way to go. When you add a shortcut to Drive, it will tell you where do you want it. So I'm just going to add this one to my drive. And now when I come back to my drive, I will have that document, and I'm not going to scroll through and find it. It's there, but it will be in my drive, which is great. Cool. That's if it's shared with you. But what if you have a file that you have and you want it to be shared in another folder as well? So we'll just go ahead and open this one. And maybe I want this agenda to actually have a shortcut in another folder because I'm not sharing this folder, but I am sharing the period 3 one with colleagues. So I can add a shortcut. This still lives here. Now when I come back and I go to this period 3 one, it was right there. You'll see that there is a shortcut to this week 1 file here. So this is a great way to share files among different folders without making a copy to each file. And I believe if I make changes here, it will also make changes in the original. So we'll leave that one there. Come back. And it does. So wherever you edit, if it is a file you own or that you have editing rights to, wherever you edit, if you edit in the shortcut, it will say, hey, we make those changes in the original, which is great. But what about when I don't want the shortcut anymore? What about when it's no longer in my best interest to have the shortcut in this file? What do? I just remove it. And here's where the big difference comes in. If I remove this and it is, and notice it doesn't say remove shortcut, it says remove. If I remove this and it is a file that I own or a file that is already in my drive, it will still exist in its original location. So you'll notice its original location was here. It is still here in its original location, even though it looked like I was removing it to trash. I was simply removing the shortcut to the trash. However, if it is a shortcut to something that is in your shared with me page, and you remove the shortcut, that file is completely in the trash. It has been removed from the shared with me. The shortcut has been removed as well. So you have to be careful when removing shortcuts. When you remove a shortcut, the only thing it doesn't delete is the original file. But that's only on the owner's account. So if you own it, you still have your original file. If someone else owns it, they still have their original file, but you no longer have the shared with me nor the shortcut. So shortcuts, you have to be careful how you use them, but they can be very, very useful once you feel comfortable. The other thing with them is if you have a file open, so much like starred, and you may have seen shortcuts this way. Next to the star will be the shortcut icon. Give it a minute to load. Oh, it may not like that one. Oh, there we go. Oh, that one's already in my drive. Sorry, let me go to a shared with me one. So now I can add a shortcut to drive from here. But if it's also one that I own, I believe, I can still add a shortcut if I go to file, so it's good. The little cloud, this cloud icon, this is my document status. So this will tell me if all changes are saved to drive, if the document's ready for offline use. If it's got a check mark, this is a quick way to know that you have actually saved, like your files are saved and updated from whatever editing you have been doing. So it is, I don't know if it's just exclusive to Drive. I think it might be, I mean, I know it shows up in my files. It doesn't show up in the drives itself. So those are shortcuts. Again, shortcuts, I would say just be careful when you go to start removing them. If you are unsure, find a friend. Grace loves shortcuts, so she may be a good person if you work with her to be like, Grace, I'm going to delete the shortcut. What do I do? Amy, I agree. Initially, I was like, oh, what happens when I do this? And so there's the other question of what happens with shortcuts. What happens when I've created a shortcut to a file that's been shared with me and the original owner deletes it, or the original owner removes access to it. What happens to my shortcut? So this is what you'll see. If the original owner trashes the file that you had a shortcut to, you will see this trash icon. You'll see that this was a shortcut here. And then when you click to open it, it will tell you this file is in the owner's trash. You're going to soon permanently lose access to it. For continued access, what would you like to do? If you catch that a file has been trashed soon enough, you should be able to make your own copy of it. But let's say it's been a couple of years and you go in and you notice someone has trashed this like a couple of years ago, you're probably no longer going to have the option to make a copy of it. So this is time dependent. I don't know how much time it's dependent on, but just know that like this isn't something you can go in a year later and be like, yeah, I'm going to still get access to something somebody trashed. If you have a shortcut to something and somebody decides, I no longer want the whole world to have access to this, or I no longer want everybody in my domain to have access to it, you will still see it as a shortcut, but it will now show this lock. So if you know who the original owner is, you can reach out to them and be like, hey, can I have access to this? Or can I have access enough to make a copy? And then you can lock it back down. Just know that the only way to bypass this is to reach out to the original owner. If the original owner trashes it, you'll have an option on your end without reaching out to them. So if you see either of these icons, especially in shared with me or with shortcuts, this is how you will know that you no longer have access to the file that you created a shortcut for. Nancy? I think so. If we've got time at the end, I'll try. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. And then there's creative naming. So all of Workspaces, AI predicted files, starred, adding a shortcut, those are whole ways to get to your navigation and to navigate faster for you. But if you're not comfortable using them and you just want to move files and folders to the top of the list, play with creative naming. You can do three things. You can add a space. So this one here simply has a space in front of it. And even though it starts with an S, because Google organizes my drive alphabetically, even though it starts with an S, that space means it got moved up to the top of the folder list. You can also add an emoji. There's an emoji keyboard, but there's also more emoji shortcuts if you want to use those. The emoji keyboard, of course, will give you more emojis, but if you're just using it to organize, you may not need all the options. So there is you can just add the emoji in front of it. If you add multiple emojis, you need to be aware that the emojis do alphabetize themselves by their name. So for example, if I bring up the emoji keyboard and I choose a star for one of them, and then I choose a television for another, my folder with the star is going to come before my folder with the television. So you can also number folders. And again, these folders have emoji-based numbers, and this is just the one from my keyboard, but you'll notice it puts them in numerical order. With numbers, however, please be aware that when you get to the double digits, it starts messing around with their numerical order. So I would not use numbers that are going to move you into the double digits. I'd come up with a different way of naming them. And so the nice thing is, this works for both folders and files. When you want to move something back to where it goes. Let's see. We're going to rename this one really quickly. Actually, that was a number one, so let's not rename that one. We'll rename this one. Right now it's at the bottom of my files. I'm going to put a flashlight. And now, oh, it should have moved it up. It didn't. Oh, that's weird. I mean, it moved it up. Oh, that's what it did. It will always list first the symbols and then emojis and then numbers. So you'll see that it does come before the numbers here. So creative naming is a way to kind of control the order for your drive if you would like. And then when you're done, yes, Karen's absolutely right. If you're going to use multiple digits, do it that way. Hopefully you're only going up to 100 or up to 999. If someone names their files into the thousands, I'm a little worried about your files, but adding the zeros as placeholders before will make sure your numbers stay correct. Thanks, Karen. I forget that that's the best way to do it. I do that in my Google Classroom with assignments. I don't know why I didn't think about it for Drive. So creative naming, it's quick, it's easy. It moves your files where you want to if you don't feel like navigating in any other way. It is 12:17. I'm sorry for the late start, you guys, today. Thank you for your time. Thank you for hanging out. I know the next session is at 12:30. I have put in the chat a feedback form for you. If you have time, fill it out. If you don't, that's fine as well. It's also on the thank you slide if you have it open with the bit.ly. So have a wonderful first day, and I hope all your sessions are amazing.